Watercolor YouTube, I'm coming to you with my proverbial heart in my hand, asking you a question about pigment numbers. Do they really matter? I'd love to hear from you down below. Okay, let's get into the video and change surroundings. Okay, we're now in my studio slash dining room. I'm kind of jammed into a corner here, and this is where I do my watercolor. I've been doing watercolor for 18 months now, and I consider myself to be basically a confident beginner. And I've just never cared about pigment codes. And so maybe we should just take a step back, because I know some of you are absolute like day one, week one, month one beginners. What am I even talking about? So when you have watercolors, each of them have not just a name, not just a number associated with their brand, but also a pigment code. And the pigment code just really specifically tells you exactly what's in it. So pigment codes usually start with a P, and that's the word pigment. And then they have like another letter that indicates what they are, like PG would be pigment green, and then numbers after that. And I'm pretty sure that's the exact same format with some exceptions. Like I think pigment brown is PBR, but anyhow, it's a code, and the code tells you very specifically what it is. And I guess what the cool thing theoretically about that is say you go somewhere where, you don't speak the language, or you're buying a brand new brand that you've never bought before, and you're trying to get a really specific type of pink, let's just say. And so when you know that pigment code, you can match it across brands, or if you don't even speak the language, for instance, like that you can't read the packaging, you could just look at the pigment code theoretically, and you'll know exactly what you're getting. And different pigments, of course, behave different ways. And so basically it's just a standardized way of organizing all these different watercolors and to know what's in it without having to rely on names, which can be quite confusing. In my own experience, I have a Roman Schmal sap green, and I find that to be quite neon, and I don't love it. And then I have a Winsor & Newton Cotman sap green, and I think for me that is like my ideal green, for example. And had I taken the time, I guess, to learn about the Winsor & Newton sap green pigment code, I wouldn't have bought the Roman Schmal one accidentally thinking, wow, maybe I'll like this too. I would have maybe known that I should have got either the same one, or maybe just been a little bit more careful about matching the codes. Helen in editing here. Not to further confuse things, but I keep making the mistake of saying pigment code. Some paints have codes, and then there are single pigment paints, and I know the whole thing is quite confusing if you're an absolute beginner. So my apologies. I'm using code and codes kind of interchangeably. You can have a watercolor paint with multiple codes in it. I'm just using the word code, I guess, kind of generically, and or just by genuine mistake, because once again, for whatever reason, this stuff, I have a hard time wrapping my head around it, and even like the terminology around it, as you'll see in this video. So that's basically what pigment codes are. So my question for you very humbly is, does it matter? Why does it matter? And why can't I make myself care? I don't know what it is, but I cannot bring myself to care about pigment codes. Something about seeing those numbers and those letters for me is such a, I don't want to use the word turn off, but my brain just shuts down. My brain does not want to go there. For me, it is the antithesis of having fun. Because my motivation in doing watercolor is really for the beauty of it, for the fun of it, for the free expression and expressiveness of it. And I should also say I'm not really much of a watercolor paint collector. I have, what I have. I actually have some swatching videos, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I have what I have. I'm pretty happy with it. I'm not someone who needs to try things from a lot of different collections. Like I have my 2 brands that I really love, and I don't feel like the need to own lots of different things and to try different paints that have the same pigment code across different brands. Like I'd be more likely maybe to not buy any of the things I already have. I don't like to have duplicates. And that's the interesting thing about watercolor that I think is maybe confusing for some beginners. Like some people really love to have lots of different watercolor paints, and they love to explore, but not everybody is like that. And I think there's a lot of pressure to be like that, especially when you make like content about it, when you make videos about it. But anyway, let's talk about swatching, because that's actually how this whole thing came to be. Okay, we've switched locales once again, and we're now in my backyard. Oh, at this point, if you would remember to hit like if you like this video and you want more like this, especially for you beginner watercolorists out there. Maybe you want to join along and consider subscribing as well. Or if you're more advanced and you just enjoy helping people like me, I would love to see you here in other videos. But speaking of other videos, okay, a couple videos ago, I made a swatching video of my most liked and least liked Roman Schmal paints, and so these were the ones I liked the most. And if you go back and watch the video, these are the ones I didn't like as much. This one is actually a Rosa Gallery one. And a number of the comments were like, could you please include the pigment codes? And honestly, I could have lived my whole life just not thinking or caring about pigment codes at all. But it occurred to me that this is important information for a lot of people who love to watercolor. But I could have probably lived my whole life just not thinking or not caring about them at all. And I was just wondering to myself, is that a crucial mistake for beginners or maybe people that are a little bit past the beginner stage? Like, is this something that's really vital to us making paintings that we enjoy? And I guess maybe that begs a bigger question about what is the purpose of it? Do you really need to know how it layers? You know, are you working on something that is so finely detailed and takes so many hours that it is vital to know these tiny little pieces and be absolutely perfectionist level about them? Or if you're kind of splashing about with loose styles, maybe it doesn't matter as much. Maybe that's the camp I'm in and will always be in. But like, what is the piece of the puzzle that I'm missing? And I know that there is one, and I know that there's probably going to be multiple sides to this issue as well. I don't think what I'm proposing here is necessarily clear cut. But anyway, in swatching this, and actually, by the way, I got in a bit of hot water about, I thought that these were similar. Because to me, to my eye, this one just looks like a fainter version of this one. No, they have different pigment codes and they behave differently, which I guess maybe kind of answers my own question. But not only that, I got kind of in trouble for suggesting this. Well, got in trouble is probably overstating it, but I had a comment, let's just say, about promoting a Ukrainian paint, Rosa Gallery, I guess, over this one Roman Schmal paint. And I made a reaction video to that on another channel. I have a channel called Field Notes, which is like video essays. Please join me there if you think that that's something you would enjoy watching. But I'll link that up and you'll see what happened about all of that, because I don't want to get into it in this video. That's not what this is about. But the larger thing was, you know, I really learned a lesson. These are different pigment codes, and so you can't expect them to look or behave the same way. So all of this to say, it wasn't really on my radar, and I don't know how to make myself care. So if somebody can convince me otherwise, I am more than willing to change my ways. I'm certainly more than willing to add pigment codes to my future swatching videos if I do more, because again, I'm not a collector, so I'm not someone who's going to be doing a $500 watercolor haul anytime soon. That's not the path that I want to take. It's not the kind of videos that I want to make. But like, what am I missing? I think that will be helpful to a lot of us who just don't understand what the, not fixation, but what the fuss, I don't know, I'm still not phrasing it correctly. I do get it though, on some level, because I come from a magazine publishing background. I was on the writing side of things, on the editorial side of things. And so I know that in the art direction department, Pantone colors are very important. And I understand that there's like a lot of similarity between those things. So I'm not ignorant to understanding why you need numbers to understand colors. But is it vital? Like, could I have continued on never caring about pigment codes? I think I could have. But maybe that means I stick at a certain level and I can't get beyond. Or maybe this is like a newer fixation that YouTube enables. I don't know. Let me know. I'm going to end the video here. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.